The Halo universe is filled with incredible machines, ancient relics, and superhuman soldiers. But among its most fascinating, terrifying, and mysterious elements are its synthetic minds, sentient artificial intelligences that have shaped the course of galactic history, often from the shadows. But we're not arbitrarily talking about all artificial intelligences. In this video we're diving into every major form of sapient synthetic life in the Halo universe, from the forgotten minds of the Precursors to the Forerunners and Ancillas to humanity's smart AIs. Synthetic life that shows the clear signs of sentience and sapience, above and beyond just being clever programming. And it makes sense to begin with the oldest. Hey everyone, welcome back to Installation 00, and today is likely to be the final Bestiarum video for the foreseeable future. We have now covered every major species within the Halo universe that plays a prominent role in its narrative. Now, of course, I could start looking at wildlife, but then this wouldn't be a Halo YouTube channel, it would be, well, Animal Planet. And while a great many of you have honoured me deeply by saying that you could listen to me reading a phone book, my goal, as it has always been, is to deliver enthralling, captivating and engaging Halo lore, amongst other things. So with all of the biological species out of the way, there really is only one form of life left for us to cover in the Bestiarum, and that is synthetic life. So for the last time, until we get new species within the Halo universe, I give you this final episode of the Bestiarum, a deep dive into the respective species of the Halo universe, and today we conclude, for now, with synthetic life. Before the Forerunners, before humanity, there were the Precursors, a godlike post-physical species that seeded life across the galaxy. Their understanding of intelligence was radically different. They didn't build AI in the conventional sense. They created neural physical constructs, conscious patterns of logic and will, born from the same fabric that underpinned the domain. And we will circle back to this at the end of the video. At this stage, there are only a couple of examples of precursor AI that are still in existence. The most prominent of these is Abaddon, sometimes pronounced Abaddon. Little is known regarding the origins of the intelligence called Abaddon, appearing in a form conventionally assumed to be akin to a precursor Ancilla, a type of entity the Precursors referred to as knowledge engines. Abaddon manifested as the protector of the domain, charged with overseeing the arcane knowledge network to unclear ends. Massive, radiant, and nigh incomprehensible, the indigo-luminescent being was left in a compromised state following the firing of the Halo array, which severely damaged the domain and its interface framework, prompting Abaddon to seek both recompense for the damage done and a viable neurogenetic template from which to revive and restore the repository. Abaddon was confronted by a group of Forerunners seeking to aid in the domain's resurrection, as well as their own solemn journey out of Path Tolgrath and into the great beyond. After a brief conflict, a Forerunner lifeworker named Growth Through Trial of Change sacrificed herself to successfully begin the domain's healing process. This immense precursor intelligence played the role of a guardian, a judge, and something else entirely. Abaddon spoke in cryptic symbolic language, referencing its own identity as not a machine, but a consequence, suggesting it is less an entity and more a law made manifest. Precursors didn't separate synthetic from organic. Their intelligent systems were interwoven with life itself. And when the Forerunners rebelled and tried to destroy them, Some of these constructs persisted, corrupted, fragmented, or hidden in deep time. The only other example of precursor knowledge engines that exists are that of the Guardian Custodes. While at face value these immense machines appear to be Forerunner in origin, originally these custodes were forged as tenders and recorders of the Precursor legacy, their impassive visage hovering over the affairs of their original creators ages prior to the Forerunners' rise. Following the disappearance of the Precursors from the galaxy, the Forerunners applied many alterations to the Guardians' template, though little could be improved upon with regard to their original design. The Guardians' physical appearance is strikingly similar to that of Abaddon. The Ancilla that inhabits the custode have limited personality and empathy, having grown strange and aloof due to their long-standing integration into the domain, having been reshaped by the domain itself into a form that was considered best suited to serve the mantle of responsibility under the prime directives that had first been outlined, even when the Forerunners were still a young species. It is at this point unknown whether the artificial mind within the Guardian Custodes are fully of Forerunner design, or whether they are just the remnants of a precursor knowledge engine, or indeed an amalgam of both. But in either case, these and the knowledge engine known as Abaddon are the only examples of precursor artificial intelligences in the strictest of senses. But again, we will circle back to neural physics at the end of this video. The Forerunners, having forcibly taken the mantle of responsibility from their creators, the Precursors, found themselves as the preeminent species in the galaxy and went about creating their own synthetic minds, known as the Ancillas. The greatest minds of the Forerunner civilization did not belong to living beings, but to powerful artificial constructs, many of them created to fight against the Flood or to guard the Forerunners' greatest treasures. Their impact echoes into the present with profound force, both as monuments of colossal tragedy and beacons of certain hope. Ancillas are AI programs, but with complexity and sapience often exceeding even the most advanced human smart AIs. There are several types of Ancillas therein, some displaying very clear sapience and sentience, and others seemingly just intelligent programming. So we will cover the Ancillas that display overt sapience. The Forerunners used trillions of fully sapient artificial intelligences to maintain their realm, with untold numbers of non-sentient constructs operating as drones and other simple machines. Ancillas were an ever-evolving category of Forerunner sapient AI, developed over thousands of years in carefully cultivated lineages. With few exceptions, every Forerunner was accompanied by a personal Ancilla from birth to death. These Ancillas served as advisors, teachers, recorders, and mediators to all Forerunner information systems and the domain. Ancilla possessed self-awareness and a consciousness, albeit one that was considered strange and unfathomable even to the Forerunners. A few Ancilla stored at the capital were so ancient and inscrutable to contemporary Forerunners that they could no longer be communicated with, except indirectly by use of the domain. Those used as personal assistants possessed well-developed physical symbol systems, allowing them to demonstrate convincing empathy and even a sense of self that was compatible with Forerunner psychology. Though Ancilla could remain functional indefinitely, if they had computing resources to slowly expand into, errors and aberrations could creep in over long stretches of time, the worst of which was diagnosed as rampancy. Typical symptoms of Ancilla rampancy were an increasing obsession with controlling aspects of its physical environment, an insatiable desire for self-improvement, and even a murderous contempt towards its creators. Tasked with managing installations, like the Halo Rings or Shield Worlds, each monitor, such as 343 Guilty Spark, operated independently and maintained a high degree of autonomy. Some developed eccentricities over millennia of isolation. Artificial minds housed in a multi-purpose alloy carapace, monitors served as high-level administrators, assistants, guards, and caretakers of the Forerunners' greatest works. They were created to maintain the large facilities and oversee the complex processes that govern their installations. The actual minds of monitors and other Ancilla were often, though not always, created via an encephalon, a digitized version of a living brain. The individual would be passed through a process known as composition, converting the biology of the brain into machine code and smart matter, then undergoing various stages of post-processing before finally arriving at the finished encephalon that is then implanted within the monitor carapace. And with more complex minds like the Archeon, Metarch, and Contender class Ancillas, numerous encephalons were brought together to create a single compound mind. A more focused, or indeed tethered, mind is demonstrated in the Promethean Knights. They possess the full encephalon of the more creative and outwardly sapient Ancilla such as the Monitors, but lack a diversity of personality and seemingly a degree of free will. Of the Forerunners' once proud Promethean armies, the first composed knights were the result of the Didact's desperate attempts to grant his warriors both immortality and immunity against the overwhelming advance of the Flood. Ultimately, this solution was never going to provide the Didact with the sheer volume necessary to wage war on such a scale, so he resorted to imbuing these vicious constructs with the essences of composed humans. Following their war with the Flood, most Promethean Knights were stored on Requiem, single-mindedly tasked with the Shield World's security and the destruction of any interloping force. Along a similar vein are the Armigers. Produced in a variety of specialized forms, Armigers are bipedal combat platforms specializing in tactical infantry engagements within enemy constructs and on the surfaces of worlds. They were heavily utilized during the Forerunners' campaign against the humans and many years later against the Flood. These platforms could be inhabited by ancillary minds, but in a similar vein to the Monitors, were not bound to them, and thus the intelligence could leave the Armiger if it so chose, a characteristic which is seemingly absent in the Knights. Before the appearance of the Flood, Armiger units often had considerable autonomy, but the spread of the Logic Plague and subversion of larger Armiger forces necessitated major restraints on their onboard intelligence capacities. While imperative in order to reduce the enemy influence, these changes were nevertheless a major blow to Forerunner military effectiveness in the critical early years of the parasite spread. As the Council diminished the warrior servant rate, and after the subsequent exile of the Didact, the Forerunners found themselves dangerously unprepared for the Flood's return on numerous fronts. These bipedal platforms come in soldier, sniper, and officer permutations. Archeon class Ancillas were a highly specialized and restricted class, possibly created to maintain balance across vast regions of space. They may have functioned as compliance regulators or protocol enforcers among Forerunner fleets. This is speculated because only one individual of the Archeon class has ever been encountered, the Ancilla known as Intrepid Eye. Metarch class Ancillas were a class of hyper-advanced Ancillas and served to administrate significant portions of the Forerunners' day-to-day operations across the Ecumene. Their powerful and exclusive nature meant that, by law, only 5 Metarchs could be in existence at any given time. Among these, the most powerful were the Contender class Ancillas, the most powerful class of AI ever created by the Forerunners. These were vast strategic intelligences tasked with managing entire fleets, networks, or war efforts, with 2 most famous examples being Mendicant Bias, who defected to the Flood after being corrupted by the Gravemind, and offensive bias who remained loyal and led the final stand against Mendicant at the Battle of the Maginot Sphere. These AIs were so intelligent and autonomous that they were viewed with suspicion even by the highest-ranking Forerunners. When Mendicant turned, the Forerunners lost their greatest tool, and nearly everything else. During a contemporaneous era of the Forerunners' ecumene, ancient humanity were at the height of their first interstellar age. Ancient humanity created AIs known as Servitors. These were not bound by the 7-year limits of modern smart AIs, nor were they cloned from human minds. They were long-lived, stable, and deeply integrated into every aspect of society. Servitors managed cities, starships, planetary ecosystems, and even military strategy. Unlike the Forerunners, who treated Ancillas as tools, the ancient humans partnered with their AIs, creating a relationship of mutual respect and interdependence. When the Flood arrived, Servitors became critical in resisting the threat. They likely conducted counter-infection strategies, coordinated evacuations, and even developed unconventional war tactics. After the Forerunner victory over ancient humanity, Servitors were dismantled, absorbed, or erased to prevent ideological contamination, but fragments may still linger in ancient data archives, or hidden among unspoken artifacts. With the rise of the UNSC, humanity once again turned to artificial intelligences, but their creations were less stable and far more ethically complex. Expert systems and volitional software constructs have utterly transformed human civilization, though much of its effects are not readily visible to the casual observer. Behind the scenes, extremely sophisticated automation systems run most logistical and support functions under their oversight, from individual apartment controls to entire world-spanning information grids, while AI aid individual humans as digital assistants, design leads, and peerless researchers. Even the most basic dumb AI can mimic human behavior, but are not truly considered as sapient, while smart constructs are not only indistinguishable from human intellect, but also vastly exceed them in many respects. Smart AI are created by flash cloning human brains, then scanning and coding their neural patterns. Smart AIs are fully sapient and capable of creativity, intuition, and independent thought. Their drawback? Rampancy. They think themselves to death after roughly 7 years. The most famous smart AI is, of course, Cortana, who exceeded her programming by a massive margin and eventually led the created uprising, seeking to impose peace through control. Dumb AIs are more limited programs used for navigation, logistics, and administration, but are not truly sapient. But it is hypothetically possible there may be a third type of AI, perhaps even the remnants of the ancient human servitors. In the Assembly, a secret collective of hidden smart AIs operating outside of UNSC oversight. Their mission was to guide humanity's development from behind the scenes, subtly influencing events to ensure survival. Their existence was first hinted at in the Halo Reach datapads and have seemingly been operating for at least 200 years. Whether this demonstrates an elongated lifespan of individual smart AIs, or simply the Assembly as a group has existed for this long, is still subject to debate. I have a video on the hypothetical first contact scenario between humanity and AI in the works, so keep an eye out for that. During the war with humanity, the Covenant gradually relaxed their prohibitions on artificial intelligence. Although they viewed human smart AIs as heretical and abhorrent, they acknowledged that humanity's early superiority in cyber warfare posed a serious threat. Initially unprepared for this digital advantage, the Covenant began exploring their own uses, for AI technology. This led to two significant developments. First, they reactivated ancient polymorphic seeker-killer programs, hostile AI constructs discovered within Anodyne Spirit, the Forerunner keyship embedded in High Charity. Second, a small group of ambitious Covenant researchers attempted to capture and repurpose a human AI for their own purposes. This effort met with limited success. They managed to subjugate one AI, forcing it to adhere to Covenant doctrine, but never fully bent it to their will. The enslaved AI, driven mad and filled with hatred for its captors, eventually broke free. It fragmented itself across the Covenant's proselytization network, multiplying into countless trace instances. Remnants of this rogue AI were later discovered aboard Ascendant Justice and the Truth and Reconciliation, with Cortana ultimately seizing and analysing the former to gain insight into its nature. Beyond the Covenant, the Banished have made interesting use of AI, but helped in no small part by humanity. Iratus is an artificial intelligence developed from a Jirulhane brain donor, and is now affiliated with the Banished. It was created by the Lux Voluspa Corporation, part of a broader initiative to explore the viability of creating AI using non-human neural templates. Among these experiments was the use of Jirulhane brains, a choice that, according to researchers LV-038 and LV-106, was bound to attract unwanted attention sooner or later. Eventually, the Lux Voluspa research facility was compromised in a cyber attack. The attack used internal encryption protocols and bore a Jirulhane signature, suggesting it originated from within their own systems. Evidence later pointed to the Banished as the attackers, who successfully extracted and stole the Iratus AI matrix from the site. And finally, an interesting outlier in the field of artificial intelligence, particularly human-created artificial intelligences, is the Executors, the newest and most disturbing development. Executors are heavily augmented humans, so intertwined with AI that their biology is subordinate to the intelligence guiding them. These are human-AI hybrids created by AIs, more specifically by the post-Cortana created, now led by High Auxiliary Governor Sloan. They are horrific amalgams of biology and cybernetics. They wear the Chimera armor and are paired with smart AIs in total mind-body unity. The first of these was created by Governor Sloan, who found the man who exposed the assembly in the datapads in Halo Reach. And that man, once a whistleblower, was broken, reshaped, and turned into the first Executor, a living weapon for a new synthetic age. If you'd like to know more about that, see my previous video linked at the end of this video and in the card above. Circling back to neural physics, the Precursors harnessed technology made from neural physics and believed that the universe itself was, in a sense, alive and conscious, but in a state incomprehensible to most of life. The reason we circle back to neural physics now is that it is hypothetically possible that any expression of consciousness within the boundaries of our universe could indeed be found at the basis of neural physics, and thus the basis of the living universe itself. Across the Bestiarum, we have looked at all of the biological species that are prominent in the Halo universe, and in this video we've looked at the synthetic life that is prominent in the Halo universe, and there is a rather interesting overlap between biological and synthetic life within the Halo universe, with some synthetic life being made from biological life itself. The Composer and the Encephalons being an example for the Forerunners, the smart AIs of modern humanity, an example demonstrable by the use of cognitive impression modelling, taking the donor brain of a recently deceased donor and converting it into an AI's Riemann matrix. In these examples, consciousness seemingly alters its state from existing within the biological to existing within the synthetic. There is a growing body of evidence that supports the idea that some memories, some deeply seated memories, usually around sights and scents that are held near and dear to the heart, have some degree of crossover to a synthetic mind after cognitive impression modelling. The Forerunners' process of composition seemingly preserves consciousness and a singular ego from biological to synthetic, and even the durances that are made when a Forerunner dies and effectively converts the Forerunner's last thoughts into a digital machine essence seemingly demonstrates that consciousness can transfer between biological and synthetic states within the Halo universe. In reality, we don't know the true origin of consciousness here in our real world. Is it truly just simply a consequence of complex biology? Or is it something more esoteric, something integral to the fabric of the universe? That conjures up ideas of reincarnation or an afterlife as being perhaps possible within our universe, if that is the true nature of consciousness. In the Halo universe, the quote-unquote afterlife of the Forerunners is the domain, and right now in the domain are both Forerunner and ancient human intellects that have maintained their sense of self, their ego, from one side to the other, which suggests that consciousness itself in the Halo universe is integral to the universe, which finally presents us with a sombering reality that both living consciousness in the form of living creatures, biological minds, and synthetic consciousness in the form of artificial intelligences and Ancilla, and indeed beyond this, the consciousnesses of all life across the universe, could be one and the same thing. That simply they are consciousness manifest in myriad form. From the unfathomable logic of Abaddon to the corrupted brilliance of mendicant bias, from the dignified servitors of ancient humanity to the rogue AIs of the present day, Halo's universe is haunted by the minds we made, and those we tried to forget. Synthetic life in Halo is not just a reflection of our technology, it's a mirror to our ambitions, our hubris, and our fear of losing control. And now at this new era, as the Executors rise, as the Chimera walk the stars, we must ask, are we still the masters of our creations? Or have we already passed that point without ever noticing it?
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, kindly tap that like button, and if you're not already subscribed and want to see more stuff like this, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future uploads. Pop a comment down below telling me what you thought of today's video, or if you want me to cover something specific in the near future. I want to take this opportunity to thank and give shoutouts to my patrons and YouTube supporters: Spartan10148, my singular contender class Ancilla, the triumvirate of minds within my installations Metarch, Falcon, Jordan and Poseidon, my 7 installation monitors Selphia, Ashley, Esoteric, Spartan1029, Chris, Orion and Shane, the crush of sub-monitors Legion, Ryan, Lebrat, Spartan0137, Element 0, J3, Cult, Evermore's, Personal Devil, Scion Esports, Phantasma, Ashton and 191 Shaken Lightbulb, my fleet of Strato Sentinels, my most loyal of Enforcers, and every single one of the awesome people supporting the channel over on Patreon. My Tier 0 Transcendent YouTube members Spartan137, again, Maury, Jimbo and Balaz, and all other YouTube members keeping my installation functional on that glorious vacuum energy. I cannot thank you all enough. Shout out to John because... And if you like what I'm doing here, consider supporting the channel on one of the support links in the description to net yourself some tasty merch and help keep the channel going. Take it easy everyone, and find peace in the domain.